Paige. Hey, Sahar. Hey, Emberlyn. Daniel. Hi, Ella. Hi, Julia. Hi, Drashti. Hi, Ria. Yay. Hi, Brianna. Hi, Conchetta. Hi, Zachary. Hi, Wendy. Awesome. So good to have all of you here tonight. Welcome to tonight's GRE free prep hour. My name is Kat. I am obviously a GRE instructor here at Manhattan Prep. I've been teaching the GRE here for about 6 years. I've been doing free prep hours for 3 or so, and this is actually going to be one of my last free prep hours. I think my second to last one, so it'll be fun. We're going to communicate a lot tonight using the chat. And I just said hi in the chat so you can see it. There's 2 options. You can chat publicly to all panelists and attendees, or you can chat just to all panelists, which goes just to me. So I'd love it if everyone could just take a moment and say hello and answer 2 questions. 1, geographically, where are you right now? And 2, where are you at in your GRE studies? Oh, nice, Sanjana. I'm in the same place as you. Cool. Test coming in up soon. Cool. People who've taken official tests doing retakes. Nice. All right. Some people got some time. Awesome. Cool. Some people just starting. We've got a big range. So I don't know if you've ever been to, Australia. So cool. You might be one of our furthest afield today. That's awesome. For me, I'm in New York City. I see we have a bunch of New York City folks. I am in Brooklyn. Yeah, we got at least one other Brooklyn person here. Cool. So tonight's session, I will tell you in advance, might be a little bit more useful for folks who are kind of at the start or in the middle of their studies. If you were taking the test real soon, this may not be the most helpful for you, but you are obviously still welcome to stick around. So the way free prep hours work is an instructor, it's usually either me or my colleague Whit, picks a topic and we teach an hour-long class on that subject. And we usually draw a lot of our problems from this book, which is a really, really great resource for studying, the 5-pound book. Tons and tons of practice problems in there. You know, I always say, if you're going to get one book, get the official guide. You have to have the official guide. But if you're going to get 2 books, this is a good second book to get. However, we aren't going to do a lot of problems tonight because I actually want to talk about something different. I want to talk tonight about learning vocabulary, how to learn words. This is definitely often a part of the test I think people get really concerned about. It's a part of the test that can be really scary, can be really overwhelming. So I wanted to give you guys some best practices for tackling this topic. Yeah, I get tons of questions about it. It's a topic that I have not taught before, in part because I will be honest, I personally get very frustrated by the fact that this test tests our knowledge of vocabulary words. I think it's not super fair. And I say this as someone who is in the rest of her life a writer and who loves language and words and is a huge language nerd. I don't love that the GRE is testing you on knowing these words, but it does. And I want to help you with that hurdle and give you some ideas for how to go about studying for this component of the test. So for folks who are kind of new starting out, a GRE verbal section has 2 components. It has a reading component, and then it has a kind of fill in the blank in a sentence component, and that's roughly half the section. Now, these fill in the blank component questions, text completion and sentence equivalents, they are also kind of reading questions for sure. Reading is an important component of them. I'm loving the word component tonight, but we do also just have to know the words and the answers. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. How do you just start building that base of words to prepare for this task? Now, reach out, probably not. I got a question if we would talk about quant a bit tonight. Probably not. We tend to sort of rotate between quant and verbal. We only have an hour, so it's usually not enough time to do more than one topic. But if you check out our YouTube page, there's all the free prep hours in the past posted there. A ton of them, probably more than 50% of them are about quant. and you'll find all different topics covered there. So if you are coming tonight really hoping for quant, I'm sorry to disappoint, but that's a great way to get a lot of good free information about quant. Depending on how things go tonight, my hope is that I might be able to finish, 5 to 10 minutes early and just field some open-ended questions. So maybe a little bit at the end if we have time. We'll see kind of how things go. Definitely, as we go through tonight's session, it's going to be probably a little bit more of me lecturing, just given the nature of the topic. But please, please, please do not hesitate. Throw any questions that come up as we go in the chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat, try to answer everything as we go through our session. So let's talk about vocab. So I think the first really important thing to know about learning words for the GRE, and I just urge you all to kind of embrace this fact right at the start, you will run out of time before you run out of words to learn. This is not a finite task. So, well, it would be really nice if there was like a master list of all the words the GRE could test you on. That list is going to overlap pretty strongly with a dictionary. It is testing words that are used in academic writing that are used broadly across many fields. So words like the words in this box. GRE is not going to test you on words that are specific to, quantum physics or art criticism, things like that. You won't have to know the meanings of those words. Might show up in reading comp, but you'll always be able to understand that kind of jargon, technical language from context. So it has to be words that can be used broadly. English is a language that has tons of words. There are tons of words to learn. Oh, got a question from Kathy. I'm going to answer it real quick because it's a good one. Kathy, you have to, the whiteboard for the online test has to be an erasable surface. It cannot be regular paper. So it needs to be like a laminated paper with a dry erase marker or a mini whiteboard, something like that. You can't just use regular paper, unfortunately. All right, so when we think about studying vocab, really, really important. Your job is just to learn as many words as you can. And we'll talk about, what that actual number might be in a little bit in the time that you have. And that's good enough. I definitely have seen students really invest in learning words and have that bring up their verbal score. So this is definitely something that you can and will improve with time and practice. However, if you are short on time, if you only have a couple weeks, focus on reading instead. So if you have, 3, 4, basically probably 3+ weeks between now and your test, learn some vocab words that'll help you. If you only have maybe 2 weeks or less between now and your test, focus on practicing reading comp. That's probably the easier, faster way to impact your verbal score. Learning words, what are we going to do? This is still, the same thing that we did, probably when you were a kid, when I was a kid. We're going to make flashcards. The technology here has not extravagantly improved. So make your flashcards. Make them on paper. Electronic flashcards are fine too. It's totally up to you. Paper versus electronic, whatever works best for you. However, I'm going to advocate tonight for you making your own flashcards. And I'm going to lay out a very extensive case for why I think that is a better idea. It's going to take a little more time. It's going to take a little more effort up front. It is going to help you be more efficient and learn more words in the long run. So take some time to make good flashcards. That's going to speed up this process. What do I mean by good flashcards? Not this. Why is this a bad flashcard? Just in the chat. Why is this not what we want to do? It does have the pro of being, good kind of 30-second flashcard. Ooh, yeah, I got a chat. It's very wordy, right? Yeah. Definition is reusing this word and then also using vehemently denouncing, which is not straightforward either. Yeah. So first off, all I have is a definition. And that definition is not very good. Ooh, I got a chat. Include an example. 100%. We're going to want to include more than one association with a word. So yes, this flashcard is fast, but this flashcard is going to waste your time because it's going to take you a lot longer to learn this word. let's try making a better flashcard. So here's a different word, arcane. Known or understood by only a few, obscure, mysterious. So I have a simpler definition, right? It's very clear. I have a couple nice, just clear synonyms there. I have an example that has kind of a joke in it. I have a picture with a little pun. And then I put some related words on. So as I'm learning arcane, maybe I also can start to connect it to other words that I'm learning. We'll talk more about that later, this idea of grouping words. Sorry, I don't know. I accidentally turned my video off. Sorry about that. I'm still here. So this flashcard is much better because it's giving me multiple opportunities to make connections between this word and the definition. So the first time I review this word, maybe I don't remember every detail, but this picture does stick in my brain. So then the next time I review, I'm like, oh yeah, there was that candy cane picture, something about like mystery, and then I get a little further. And then maybe the third time I come back and it starts to stick more. So by giving myself many possible associations on my flashcard, I am radically improving the odds that when I look at it a second, third, fourth time, I am going to remember this word. This is going to take some time for sure. Let's say that you are in a position where you don't have a ton of time, or maybe you already like bought a box of flashcards. That's not the end of the world. Just, you know, add things to them. Put your own, put a little sticker on it, put a little picture on it, put your own sentence on it. So you can take pre-made flashcards and just tweak them so that they're a little bit more personal to you. And that can be a really great kind of compromise when we're creating flashcards. And you, ooh, yes, I got a great question. You can also do this electronically. There's some great kind of apps out there. I've used Anki before for learning different things. These are great options too if you want to have something you can do on your phone, but you also want to be making your own. I got an excellent question. Should you include roots or suffix prefixes for each word? 100%. Learning roots is super, super helpful. We are in fact going to talk a little bit about learning, kind of using roots to learn words a little bit later on tonight. So I think that that's an excellent idea, and I will talk more about that. So this is, again, I'm gonna emphasize this because it's important. Take time to make up flashcards for yourself. You know, with a flashcard like this, you're going to have to review it a dozen or more times. So it's going to take you longer. With a flashcard like this, yeah, it's going to take more time to make it for sure. But then with a good flashcard, you should only need to review it 5 times in order for it to really stick. And that number 5 times, I did not just make that up arbitrarily. This is very much rooted in our studies and peer-reviewed science about how we memorize and learn things. And these are, you know, based on memory techniques that have a long history. So a good flashcard should really help you be more efficient. And maybe you're thinking like, yeah, saving a minute doesn't seem like a big deal. But you could be learning, you know, 100, 200, 500, 1,000 words, depending on how long you're studying. So, you know, those minutes, 1 minute per word, that can really, really add up over the course of months. Now, I do want to say one more thing about why I think it's really important to have rich flashcards. And this is based a little bit on actually how our brains work. So there's some cool, very brief, cool moment of science, of neurobio, which is our emotions are very much linked to our memory formation. So when we see something and we have a strong emotional reaction, we are way more likely to tag that thing that we're seeing as being important. Our emotions help us decide, you know, what's necessary for our survival. So learning vocabulary words is not, I think, to our brain something that seems immediately necessary to our survival, but if as I'm learning that word, I can kind of trick myself into thinking that there's some strong feeling linked to it, I'm going to also remember that faster. So this is why making your own flashcards is a great idea, because you can make flashcards that are personal to you. So let's say we're trying to learn the word truculent. Just like belligerent, angry, hostile. Think of a person you know that you could describe this way. Think about a situation you've been in where you felt this way. Think about something that's personal and emotional and use that on your flashcard. I had a student once who made all of the sentences on her flashcards about a really bad breakup that she had recently been through. And they were all really angry sentences about her ex. And you don't have to show your flashcards to anybody else. They can be really petty and spiteful, but she really learned words fast. So I've definitely seen this in action, and it's something that you can use for yourself. Yeah, yep. I got a great chat about always trying to create sentences with words that are based on your own experiences. I love that. I think that that is a really, really great way to go about this. However, if you are having trouble thinking of clever ways to remember a word, this is another great place to turn. So let's say you've tried really, really hard to come up with really clever, emotional, strong ideas for learning a word. This is a place that you could turn. It's sort of like a crowdsourcing for mnemonics. Really great if you need like a little lift. You can kind of scroll through, find one that you like, that you think is funny or silly. Humor is also a great way to learn. So what I would like all of you to do, this is also a chance for us to kind of learn some words together. I'd like you to pick one word from this list that you do not know. And your job is, you don't have to make a whole flashcard, but I want you to look up the word. See if you can think of a trick for remembering it. And then chat to everyone, if you're comfortable, the word, a brief definition, and your trick. So I'm going to give all of you a moment to kind of go out and learn a new word and then share it. And maybe we'll all be able to think of things that kind of appeal to one another as well. And I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. And if you know every single word here, send me a chat. I'll find another word for you. I'll try to find another word for you. Ooh, excellent question. What if the dictionary shows more than one definition? If those definitions are relatively different from one another, learn both. The GRE actually really likes words that have more than one kind of differing definition. If the two definitions are very, very similar, then I think you can get away with kind of condensing them into one. Ooh, and actually, if you see that there is a definition, I got a question about differing definitions of the word boon. I would count those definitions as fairly similar, but also if you see that a definition is listed as archaic, I would not worry about learning that, because that's kind of falling outside our scope of words that are commonly used in multiple in multiple situations. Ooh, lots of people went with obdurate. Yeah, I love these. Obdurate, being stubborn, refusing to change. Sounds a lot like obstinate. I think that that's a really great way to remember obdurate. Also, I really relate to the chat that, oh, I'll remember that because that's me. I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn too. So I would relate to obdurate as well. Obstinate, stubborn, or maybe like your ex, like yourself, or like your ex. Yeah, lax. We got not strict, severe, not very lax about curfew. Ooh, my parents were not lax about curfew either. Came home late one night. My mom was waiting up for me, and that scared me out of ever doing that again. I like these sentences. Let's see. Keep sending these in. These are fun. Yeah, I like this. Trite. Boring. Overuse. No. Right. Whack. Love the emoji. That emoji is so great. And that's like a wonderful way now to remember it. Awesome. Schism. A split or division between strongly opposed groups. Widening schism. Ooh, that's a sad sentence. As a teacher, that situation bums me out. Although I know it's been a hard year in education worlds. Boon. I love that. A spoon could be a boon when eating soup. These GRE classes. That's a good one too. Oscillate between. Yeah, I think that that's great. You know, sound is great too. Spoon and boon, that rhyme is gonna help. Vacillate sounds like oscillate, or obdurate sounds like obstinate. Sometimes there's a reason for that. You know, sometimes words sound similar because they come from similar places. Sometimes it's just kind of chance. They sort of converge in a similar sound. Ooh, yeah, that's cool. Like, yeah. Oh man, yep. If you speak Spanish, if you speak French, if you speak Italian, any Romance languages, super, super helpful. Look for those cognates, for those related words. You know, English borrows a lot from other European languages, so that can be super helpful. Trite will be tart. I like that. Awesome. These are great. Oh, that's cool. That's a cool. I got to chat. Schism sounds like pinching in a different language. Yeah, like connected sounds, connecting across languages, whether or not they're actually related words, if they sound similar and that linkage helps you. Awesome. Schism. I can see that with pinching, like you kind of pinch at something and it breaks apart. That connection. Cool. These are great. All right, I want to tell you more things, so I'm gonna keep going. But if you have something cool, ooh, wait, I got one more, so I'm gonna type up one more, and then we're gonna go forward. Prolix, tediously wordy. The politician's prose was prolix. Yeah. Politics is a very emotional topic, so it can be great for your flashcards. I've also seen people use that in various ways, for sure. Prose, prolix, I like that. I like the echoing sounds. All right, so getting into some more tricks. I want to talk now, you know, we've talked a bit about making your flash. Sorry, I don't know why I keep hitting these buttons incorrectly. Think I had not been teaching in Zoom for many years. It takes 3 minutes to make. Then we want to try and see it 5 times to really learn a word. And so what I want to tell you about now is a very tried and true system for how to organize your work with flashcards. I will say in advance, this is a system that is extremely structured. So I'm going to lay it out for you. If you want to screenshot some of these kind of calendars and plans I'm going to show as we go, please do have my blessing for that. So you don't have to feel like you have to catch everything as I'm talking about it. You don't have to organize things in the way I'm going to describe for you. This is just a sort of very rigorous way to ensure that you really learn a lot of words super, super well. You could definitely do a less aggressive, lighter version of this for sure. But I want to show you like the peak place that you could go to with this stuff. Now, when I'm talking about reviewing a word 5 times over several weeks is super important. So it's not 5 times Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It has to be 5 times with increasing distances between each review. And again, this is based on some cool science about how our brains work. And this is actually, I think, super important for anything you're trying to memorize, math facts, vocab words, whatever it is. We forget everything really fast. Don't forget this as you study, because it'll remind you to kind of be gentle with yourself. So if I know something, within a couple hours, I actually 50% of whatever I just reviewed or learned or read is gone. Things just fly out of our brains because we process so much information. If we didn't forget a lot, we would go crazy. So what happens is when I sit down, a day later to review, I solidify the 50% that I do remember, and then I reset. And so over time, as I review something multiple times, I take this natural tendency to forget and I turn it into a really solid memory. I sort of stop this process of my memory decaying. And this is what gives us the learning curve. So it takes some time. It's, we talk about things having steep learning curves or not steep learning curves, but all we're trying to say is it takes time and repetition to truly learn something. And there's a little bit of patience involved. So how do we ensure that we are getting the right time, the right sort of repetition? Well, if you really, really want to go after it, you can do a Leitner box. I actually have a cool comic about this. Maybe I'll try to find it and share in the chat. But this is a really old school way to memorize literally anything really, really well. Learning a foreign language, learning any new skill, this can help. So it's maybe a cool thing to just know about for beyond the GRE. Here's the idea. You're going to start by putting your new words into a pile. We'll call that pile deck 1. Now, each time you go through deck 1, if you get a word right, you move it to deck 2, to deck 3, to deck 4, to deck 5, and then deck 5, when you get a word from deck 5 right, you can retire it because now you've seen it 5 times. You've got your 5 times. You know it. If you do not get a word right, it has to go all the way back to deck 1, no matter where in this process you are. So it has to be 5 times correct in a row. New words you're going to look at every day because they're super new. You're just starting to get them into your brain. Words that you are a little bit starting to know, you're going to look at every other day. As you get closer and closer to knowing that word, you challenge yourself more. You make that interval longer. So the idea is when you're trying to look at a flashcard and remember the word, it should always feel a little challenging. If it feels a little hard to recall, you're doing it right. If you're working with your flashcards and it's just always really easy to remember everything, that's actually not helping you so much. So that means you need to space out your repetitions more. So this is one way to ensure that you're spacing out your repetitions appropriately. And then you can make a calendar. Say, okay, deck 1's going to be every day. Deck 2 is going to be every other day. Put in deck 3, put in deck 4, deck 5. So you just have this nice system that's like, which of these piles do I look at? Boom, done. I know what I'm doing. This is obviously slightly irritating because it is a 5-week rotation instead of a 4-week rotation. That is just what it is. So yes, this is a very complicated system. It's going to take a little bit of effort to set up, right? You're going to have to kind of tape this calendar up on the wall or put it in your Google Calendar, put your flashcards in the 5 decks, etc. But I would argue that once you get this system set up, then it's kind of in a way easier because you never have to think about what you're doing. You just have a plan each day for what to do, and you can trust this system. People have used this for a very long time to learn and memorize all kinds of different things. It is a super, super effective way to memorize. So that is a Leitner box. You know, let's say that this, you're looking at this and you're like, I'm not going to do this. This looks insane. This is too much for me. Cool. Make it simpler. You know, you can get a similar effect by, having 3 decks, like new, sort of, no, and almost. And looking at these daily, these like twice a week, and these, you know, once a week. And then something that I think could be good is every time you get a word right, put a couple check marks on it. And that way, you know, when you get 5 or 6 checks in a row, that word's probably good. Same thing here, though. If it goes wrong, it's got to go all the way back to the start. I think that Anki actually builds this kind of spaced repetition into the app itself. So I will say Anki definitely, you probably don't need to set the Leitner stuff up in Anki because I think that's already how Anki works. I'm not so sure about like Quizlet and some of the other apps, but I do think that this is structured into Anki. I am going to talk now about kind of how to add cards into this system. So yeah, I got a couple great questions around that. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And I also got a great question where to find words. I'll give you a few ideas. Where to find words. There's GRE lists online, GRE word lists you could look up. I would encourage you to make sure they are fairly recent, since there are still some old words floating around from older versions of the GRE. You could also add words from your reading comp and vocab question practice. So as you're doing GRE practice, anytime you see a word you don't know, put it on a list. And then as you need new flashcards, you can pull words from that list. That's a great way to learn. Or from other outside reading. You know, a great way to build your verbal skills is just to read as widely as you can. I'm a big fan of 19th century novels as preparation for the GRE because they have such sort of complicated sentences and big vocabularies. But really any reading you want to do, you can draw from that. So those would be my 3 kind of primary suggestions for where to pull words from. So let's get into, these are great questions. Keep questions coming as we go. All right. So how do we add words? So first off, I think a thing that you need to decide is how many words do you want to learn each week? And that's going to determine how we kind of add new flashcards into our piles. And this has to be, you have to balance a couple things to make this decision and be a little bit realistic. One is how important is vocab for you? And so this is, oh, yes. I will try to share the Anki site in a moment when we have a little break. I'll look that up and I'll put the link in the chat. This is something your personal priority. A practice test is a great way to assess this. And then to think about, did I miss questions solely because of knowing words? Or was it also about reading? So keeping in mind that vocab questions are about both reading and knowing words. To what extent, you know, can you go back, look at your practice test? To what extent is not knowing words causing problems for you? And that's going to help you figure out how important is this. Balancing with that, realistically, how much time do you have? So let's say you're like, I've got time, super important that I learn words, 50 per week. Do not try to learn more. I have never seen I've seen people try and I've seen it end badly. I have not seen anyone succeed. I think 50 is really pretty much the maximum cap for what we can reasonably learn and retain in a week. Let's say you want to, maybe have 2 hours, 30 to 40 words, 1 to 2 hours, 20 words a week. 20 words a week, if you can keep that up for several months, is great. That's going to be a lot of words, so keep in mind also, as you are thinking about setting a target for yourself, this is a marathon process, not a sprint. So this has to be an amount of time and a number of words that you can really maintain over time. I always tell my students, I would much rather you learn 10 words a week, but that you really learn 10 words a week and you do that consistently, than that you start out saying you're going to learn 50 and learn 50 one week and burn yourself out and then never think about learning words again. So start with a goal. And then once you have your goal, I'll show you how you could kind of go about adding words into your deck. So this is based on the idea it takes about 3 minutes to make a flashcard and then about 10 minutes to review kind of a typical pile of flashcards. So let's say I was going to learn 50 words a week. I'd add 10 words in 5 days. So it's kind of like I pick 5 days of the week to make those my days that I add words. Let's say you're only learning 20 words a week, then maybe you just make 4 new flashcards 5 days a week. So every day you're doing a little bit of flashcard making instead of having, like Sunday be the day that you make 50 flashcards, because that's horrible. And probably by the end, the flashcards are not going to be very great. And then you review your flashcards. So this, again, 50 words a week, this is like maximum intensity. That would be 40, 50 minutes most days, with a couple kind of lighter weekend days. And then ideally, as you get into this process, things start to retire too. So you can also start saying like, okay, I'm going to add in new words at the rate that I'm moving words out of a deck. Like maybe you always want to keep sort of 15 words in deck 1. And then once you get 5 words out of deck 1, you add in more. So to start, you can do it like this, but then as time goes on, you can think about adding in new words as replacements for words that have gone away. I know that this sounds maybe like a lot of time, but there's a lot of kind of underutilized time in our days. So if you think about, for me, I always look at the like metrics about my phone usage and how much time I spend on Instagram. I love Instagram. Like if I just cut out Instagram, I could definitely learn another language because I could easily have the time I would need to memorize 50 words a week. I don't think I would have the discipline to do that, but I would at least have the time. So thinking too about where are there little bits of time throughout the day that you could have 10, 15 minutes here or there. That's great for studying vocab. And that way you could actually fit in learning a lot of words without having to radically change your routine. I got a great question that I'm going to kind of pause and answer before we shift to a slightly different topic. And this is about, if you're just starting, how long should you take to study? I actually think I did a free prep hour recently that was sort of around planning that might be helpful for that if you look back at the YouTube archives. But I think that, yes, I, on average, would recommend 3 to 6 months. It depends a little bit just on how much time you have, how quickly you kind of what the issues are you need to work with, how quickly you can address those, and how much you're looking to bring up your score. But 3 months for sort of, a moderate increase, you have a fair amount of time to devote. Maybe 6 months, maybe a little longer if you don't have as much time each week. You need to spread it out more. So realistically, if you started in the summer, you could be ready to take it in the fall. I think at least if, what do I want to say? Take a practice test. See how far you are from where you want to be. That might help as well. All right. And I will say, if you do not have 3 to 6 months, you are not necessarily in trouble. I had a student prepare in 10 days. She worked, she took, 10 days off work and all she did was study, but she brought up her score a lot. She got to where she wanted to be, came in not having done much GRE before, did like a 1-day workshop with me, and then studied for 10 days and took it. So I've seen people condense this preparation into a couple of weeks. I've seen people take a year. Anything in theory can work. When I say 3 to 6 months, that's just on average what I see happen most often for most people. Depends a bit too on sort of, what else is in your life, how intense is your job right now, how intense are your other like kind of family, personal commitments. Always have to balance those things. All right, let's go back to vocab. The other thing that you can do, so now I've talked about sort of the core things. Now that we've talked about the core things, I want to talk about a couple sort of tricks for accelerating word acquisition. And the idea here is that if you can link things together as you learn them, if you can group concepts, you're going to learn things faster. Because it's easier for us to remember something when it's related to something that we already know. So what I want to talk about now are 3 different ways that you could group words in order to make it easier to acquire more words in a short span of time, sort of speed up the deck 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 process that we've talked about. So here's one way to group words. Pick a word, mournful, sad. Find 6 or 7 words that all have related meanings. And you could write these words on one another's flashcards. You could put all these words as a group on a big flashcard. You could kind of put them all together into deck 1 at the same time, whatever you want. Group them. Sometimes people see this and they're like, but won't I confuse these words? And this is the beauty of this strategy is, they all have something to do with sad now, because you're like, oh, it's my sad group. So I don't even have to worry about that core meaning because I have it down. So now I can focus on the nuances. And this way, I actually will remember the fine gradations of difference between these words more quickly. So I'll end up with a more thorough knowledge of these words faster by grouping them. Dolorous, feeling great sorrow. So this is like a very strong sad. Despondent is more like despair, like there's no future. We have nothing to look forward to. So very different from like a deep grief. Melancholic is a bit like being, melancholy is sort of an old school word for depression, like in a sort of thoughtful, withdrawn, maybe like long-term sadness. Melancholic, kind of you're sad as a personality trait. Rueful, we're going to move around, is like a sad with regret. Lachrymose is a weepy, like a crying sadness. And lugubrious is like so sad, it's almost ridiculous. like a little over the top, almost comic sadness. It's not really obvious. I love words. I think they're so much fun. I love all of these subtle differences, and I get really into this. So this is one way to group words. I got a good question in the chat that's a little bit unrelated. So I'm going to talk about ways to group, but then I am going to answer the question I just got because it's super helpful. Another way to group words, and someone brought this up earlier, thank you, we're going to circle back to it, is roots. So find a list of common root words in English. For example, bene is a Latin word. A lot of English words originate in Latin and Greek, more in Latin than Greek, some Greek. So bene means good. Find a bunch of words that all use that root. And this is really fun because they also all kind of sound the same. So they're going to have similar meanings a lot of the times and a similar sound. Benefactor, someone who does good. Beneficent, someone who gives good. Benevolent, someone who wants good for others. Benign, something that's not going to harm you. Benediction, diction like dictionary or speech, saying good, a blessing, or benefit, a gain. So all these different kind of similar words, group them by root. Plus, knowing a lot of roots can help you, because then if you see a word that you've never seen before, but it uses a root, you can kind of guess it, what it means. And that can be super helpful. Etymologies are also just a great way to remember words. So if you get into it, look it up. You know, there's a bunch of different sites online where you can look up the history or etymology of words. And that gives you a little story about the word. Like benediction comes from bene, which is good, and dicere, which is to say. So to say something good, to bless someone. For me, if I have a story, I remember it. So I like etymologies a lot because I like having those stories. And then you can figure words out, you know, like bene, good, plus fact, to do, plus or, like actor, someone who does, is a patron. Circum, which is to around, and vent, which is to go, circumvent, to go around, to avoid something. And ante, which is before, diluvian, which is flood, before the flood. It's like, this is like an archaic okay boomer, like it's really, really, really old, outdated. So if you want a new way to insult old people, which honestly probably shouldn't, we should be nice, but that would be a way to do it. If you're arguing with your parents and you're feeling bold and want to be rude. I'm not feeling bold, still a little scared of mine. So that's the second way to group. Third way to group words is actually kind of a little game that you can play that's kind of fun. Third way to learn words is, or to group words, is just randomly. You're walking around, you see something, can you tag what you see with a few different vocab words? Or pick 3 flashcards out of a pile and try to make a little story with them. So actually even random connections between words are really helpful. Oh, I got a great way to remember benediction with Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Dr. Strange. And in the end of that movie, he was a great blessing who brought everyone back. And that's a great way to remember benediction. I love that. Yay. So I'll show you an example of what I mean by this. Let's see. I pick these 3 words. Vituperative we've seen before. That's like vehemently denouncing, like that's a bad definition. Vituperative is like really like scolding, yelling, like talking someone down. Arcane is like esoteric, old, kind of mysterious. And a panacea is a cure-all, something that heals all of us. Like the vaccines are a panacea, we hope. So I make a story. I have this little picture here of a cat. Here's a little story that I could make to link these words. The neighborhood cat was always trying to steal fish from the grocery store. Whenever it succeeded, the old grocer unleashed a vituperative exclamations and built ever more mysterious and arcane. So notice that in constructing the story, I'm actually using some synonyms to help reinforce the meanings. Like when I make a story like this, I want it to be very abundantly clear what the meanings are. But he finally realizes that the only panacea for his problem, so it's a fix for a problem, is to make sure the cat's never hungry. So pick your words, put them into a story. This is also a way, I think, to just add some kind of liveliness to your studying. If you're getting sick of just like looking at flashcards every day, do something a little different. Make it fun. I have one other kind of little road I want to go down, but I want to pause here to answer a question that I got, which is what other parts of preparing for the GRE are like a marathon and not a sprint? Verbal in general. I would say vocabulary is probably the thing that takes the longest amount of time to build because there is just a limit to the number of words that we can learn per week. I would also just want to say, no, I'm going to take that back. Reading comp is also takes a little bit longer to improve at just because reading is a very complex skill. So definitely practice reading comp. You can and will improve at it. It just might be take a little bit more time than quant. I think the other place where it often sort of takes some time is if you were aiming for a very high quant score, getting comfortable with some of the sort of timing tricks and the complexities of the problem solving, like solving really hard quant problems. I sometimes see that's like a nut that can take a little bit of time to crack. So that's one of the other places where maybe I would budget a little bit more time. Yes, I will try at the end to kind of pause for a second, and then I will send the link to our YouTube channel. We also did a thing called Word of the Day if you're learning vocab, where you can see a little video for a different word every day, and I'll try to send the link to Anki. I just wrote that down so I don't forget. All right. So final thing I want to talk about is actually just give you guys a couple troubleshooting things, because this is going to happen. There's going to be some words that you look at and you do the whole system and it's like you're really, really great and you made great flashcards and it just will not stick. It's going to happen. This quote has been attributed to all of these different people. But yeah, so if you're just keep looking at a word and it's just not working, try something different. And I have a couple suggestions for things you can do if you get real stuck with a particular word. So first thing is very simple, but actually can be extremely powerful. Normally we look at the word and we think about the definition and then we check. Just do it in reverse. Start with the definition. Can you think of the word? And I would definitely like not allow myself to see every aspect of the back of my flashcard. That might make this too easy. Maybe I just start with the definition. Can I go from definition to word? Once I get that down, then I can try to go the other way. Or improve your flashcard. You know, if what you have on your flashcard isn't sticking, add something new. So let's say I'm trying to remember dolorous, which is full of sorrow, mournful, just like extremely, extremely sad. Put in something funky. Maybe the sad is not your vibe. The sad sentence is not sticking. Let's make it a little silly. Dole, pineapples, sad pineapple drawing. You know, be funny, be weird. It really helps. Speaking of which, what can we add that will really work? Things that are really silly. Things that are really inappropriate, you know, no one else has to see your flashcards, and things that are kind of petty and gossipy. So in addition to things that are emotional, 3 things that human beings really like are being silly, being inappropriate, and being gossipy. You know, our species has not changed much over the years. And in fact, these are ways that people have been trying to remember things for a really long time. These go back hundreds and hundreds of years as memorization techniques. And the Puritans, to the extent the Puritans really didn't like them. And I always feel like if the Puritans were not on board with something, maybe it's not such a bad idea, because they were not the nicest people of all time. So that's another way to improve your flashcards. Final issue, and I think I am going to have a few minutes for Q&A, which I'm psyched about because I normally don't. Final thing, if you learn a word wrong, like let's say you learned enervate and you think like energize. Oh no, enervate actually means to drain someone of energy, to lose energy. So what if you've learned it wrong? Bad news. It's very, very hard to like take something out of your brain. Once it's in there, it's in there. But good news, just keep adding until you get to where you want to go. So enervate, I've linked enervate to energy. I'm stuck with that. That's connected in my brain. So now I'm going to add something else. So like, okay, I've got the enervate part, but there's a vat. I'm putting the energy into the vat. It's going away. Enervate means to lose energy. So if you kind of misconnect, learn something wrong, it's not the end of the world. Don't kind of bully yourself trying to get rid of that connection. Just do something a little different. Add to it. Reroute yourself back to the right place. Yeah, and I got to chat about kind of flashcards getting really full of information. They're a little bulky, but those big index cards are not a bad idea sometimes. Because definitely, especially if you're like me and you have sort of unruly handwriting, definitely just having more space for words can be really helpful. Or you could even staple two index cards together, maybe. All right. So I have finally, after all these years, done what I have many times promised to do, which is I have concluded my content for tonight with a few minutes left to do some Q&A. So I will open things up to more Q&A. While you are thinking of your questions, I'm going to see if I can quickly find the links that folks requested. All right, so here is the link to Anki. And the next one was our YouTube channel, and then I will look at your beautiful questions. Here is our YouTube channel where you can find archives of all of the past things. Cool. Ooh, I got a cool way to remember enervate. Associate it with evaporate, or think of it as enervac, like a vacuum sucking energy away. I love those. Those are both super clever. All right, what other questions? You can also attend the first session of any of our classes for free. That's another great free resource. Yeah. So, all right, what other questions do we have? What suggestions do I have for someone who doesn't have a lot of extra cash for like prep resources, tutoring, etc.? Awesome question. This whole applying to grad school process, I know, is super expensive. I have my thoughts on it, but I'm gonna not get into that. But the good news is I think there are a lot of good free resources that if you're motivated, you can get like all the information you need on the internet for free. Look at all the past free prep hours on our YouTube channel. It covers almost every topic and question type that's on the test. Like everything is on there. Khan Academy is great for math. It covers obviously a lot more math than what's on the GRE. So I would definitely say like, look at the sort of lists of what's tested in the official guide and cross-reference that with Khan Academy. If you are thinking, also if you want tutoring that is less expensive than test prep tutoring, you could probably find, if you look on Wisant, you could probably find someone who will tutor like the math foundations for a much more reasonable price. So that's something else sometimes I've recommended to students who feel like they need like more kind of intensive help just with the sort of math content side. And that can be a little bit more affordable than some of the test prep stuff. So those are some of my suggestions. Khan Academy is great. I send people there all the time for free stuff. Yeah. What else? Free reading passage questions for the verbal. The GRE official guide is not free. However, ETS does publish some free practice tests on their website, and you could even do those as, like untimed kind of study sessions for extra verbal practice. And then I think most test prep companies will also have like a free practice test on their website. We do, Kaplan does, I think most do. So you could use those as kind of like also just for practice questions. You don't necessarily have to do them as full-time practice tests. What other questions? Yes, if anyone does enroll in a GRE course, I got a question just like, could you ask me questions during the week? Totally. If you are enrolled in a course, I always tell my students, email me. I'll try to get back to you in 24 hours. I do a lot of email support for students who are currently in my classes. I can really only realistically do that for students who are in current classes with me, just because I have a bunch of students at any given time and limited hours in the week. But I'm always happy to do that. If you can only get one book, get the official guide. That is the book to get. Yeah, the 5-pound book I think is also great for practice problems. The official guide, just important to have because it's our best sort of estimate of what's happening on the official test at any given moment. So I would say I don't love the way things are explained in the official guide, but the problems themselves are really great. Yeah, you can find all the information about upcoming classes, class rates, etc. on our website. You can also find information about the upcoming free prep hours. There should be one in another couple of weeks that my colleague Whitney will run. I don't actually know the exact date off the top of my head, but if you go to our website, it will all be there under GRE. I think prep options is the tab. 5-Pound Book official guide, you can get them both on Amazon or probably off of other online booksellers. Yeah. And I think that seems to be it. Maybe I have actually gotten through everything. Yeah, yep. So if you enroll in a course, if you have specific questions during the week, you can send me an email. You know, I will always make sure that all of my current students have my email when they sign up for a course. So that's how that will work. Oh, maybe there's one more. Yes, the second edition of the official guide is pretty much the same as the third. So if you have the second edition, I actually sometimes still use my old second edition just because it's around and the problems are almost exactly the same. So I definitely don't think you need to invest in getting another copy if you have the older one. Yay, I got to do Q&A and I think I got everyone's questions answered and it is the end of our time. So thank you guys so much for being here. I will be back here in April to do another one of these. It'll probably be about quant. Good luck with your studies. If you're taking the test soon, I hope it goes super well and have a lovely night. Take care. Bye.